here the bronze final between AUUC Flood, who we just saw putting out an impressive performance, but still unable to overcome the destructive power of Marvelous DC, facing off against Hammertron Prime. We've seen them here before. They made the bronze finals last year, hoping for an improvement, hoping to walk away with a medal around their necks again, who were just defeated by HMC Wings and Poppers, who we will see face off against Marvelous DC in the final after this. My name is Blair Monroe.
And I'm Kelsey Bielik.
And we are here in rainy Waikato now, Kirikiriroa, Hamilton, for this, the bronze final. The rain falling down, is it a portent of things to come as Flood take the field? The perhaps benefit of facing MDC in the game ahead of this one is that MDC put out such a strong performance that the game ended early, giving Flood plenty of time to catch their breath. Prime, on the other hand, fighting to the wire against HMC before being knocked back to this bronze match here. Perhaps a little bit less time to rest, and so we'll see whether or not that fatigue has an impact on this match.
No, we will see about that, but talking to them just before the match now, one thing Hammertron did touch on is that they're carrying that momentum. They're feeling warmed up after that last match, and they want to leave it all out on the field here. You know, while I'm sure Flood's on the same page, they didn't mention that. Specifically what they're looking at doing pre-match talk is finding their big receivers, like looking to put up the throws, their big throws to their big receivers, really drawing on, trying to bring that same momentum they had yesterday during their massive win on Universe Points. Trying to dig deep and bring that same type of game here on the Sunday for their final match for third place.
Vaughn Wilson, one of the key scorers for the Hammertron Prime line, coming out on defense with the pull. Whitlock receives for Flood in blue. Not a lot of wind. It's very, very still, all things considered. A wobbly reset to Whitlock. Crisp forehand across the far side to find Lamb.
And Lamb really had a great game the last game against Marvelous DC. She was directing traffic as a handler, really dominating that space, just showcasing her clean throws and calm, collected attitude around the disc. Really showing that she was unfazed by the level of play and the pressure that Marvelous DC was bringing. I'm excited to see more from her in this game as well.
Absolutely, and again, Flood, as the tournament progresses, seeing them make better use of their women. Something that we did notice, that it's mixed ultimate, the team that uses their women better tend to put on the better performance.
And Whitlock in the end zone, just outside, looking for the assist. Intense pressure by Hammertron defense. Oh!
Great bid by Patterson, but in the slippery weather, the wet weather, not enough to keep the disc off and out of the hands of Hammertron Prime. Simone Ball to pick up.
Massive fakes here, trying to move her mark around. Quite a tenacious mark there. Lamb is hungry for the D, going for the layout block. Now, was that a block or did that just slip out of her hands?
Looks like contact might have been made, an uncontested foul. And so we're seeing the other players give a good spirit, signaling that, making sure everyone knows what happened. Uncharacteristic for Simone Ball to lose the disc like that, so that contact may have had an impact. Ella Lamb still applying massive defensive pressure, really forcing Simone to look around and search for openings.
Especially with the high stall count there, really cool to see her laying it all out on the ground, going for a layout hand block.
A great grab by Ball.
This is looking to be a really great matchup to potentially keep our eye on for the rest of the game as well.
Maragi Hogan, one of the key players. We've seen some fantastic performance from her. Great defensive positioning, great defensive movement from her.
And Ball's fakes causing Lamb to just reach over a little too far.
Hamish Crockett overthrown, and so unable to get a hand to it. AUC Flood, we've had turn after turn. Whitlock with a big shot up, a lot of edge. Patterson getting underneath it.
Once again, with the rain, just, you know, the lack of friction, it can be difficult to hold on to the disc. It went right through his hands there. And you can tell he's feeling frustrated with that. We'll see if they can do it again. I'm sure second time will be in the breadbasket, because, you know, as long as you're hitting those open throws, making those good decisions, if it's a bobble in the end is the issue, and the reason it doesn't convert into a point, you know that you do that again, and it will.
We're seeing that same great defense from Campbell Jordan as Hamish Crockett manages to find one. This one cleanly blocked by Lamb. Just shifting that same play to the near sideline this time.
What?
A great turnover for Flood.
What power on that mark. She's hungry to leave it all out, to really get her energy out in this game, and leave it all out on the field.
This is going to be the last game of the tournament for these two teams. There's nothing left. There's no reason to reserve anything anymore.
Oh.
So we're going to see a lot of risky throws, a lot of intensity from both teams. Benjamin Chong trying to recenter the disc, but it finds turf. Simone ball marked by Lamb one more time. Are we going to see a three-peat?
A bit of a bump there on the mark. Resetting. And the disc is live.
Having to make big movements to shift that mark. A wide swing across the far sideline to find Hamish Crockett.
And Ball really directing traffic here. She's running this offense. Such a safe reset.
Vaughan Wilson to Ball again. We're seeing those same key handlers on the Hamilton line, despite their Hex offense intending to have all players sort of take the roles of both.
And the disc is up.
Benjamin.
Clean defensive play, followed up with the catch, and you know they say in Ultimate Frisbee, catch your Ds, because if he hadn't followed that up there, it still could have resulted in a point.
Kieran McDonald with the reach and the vision to maybe have taken a second bite. Chong keeping his focus, securing that turn, overthrown.
Bit too late on the bid there to keep it up in the air, and we saw Whitlock hanging out in this deep space and waiting for a huck to come up.
And again, had Lamb managed to get there in time, she'd have been in great position unmarked to send one long, but
absolutely
a turnover now. Hamatron.
Looks like calling the time.
So a very, very long point for this first point of the game. A timeout being called.
Yeah, surprising, you know, checking myself there, looking at the score, and yeah, realizing that it is still 0-0. It is a long point to start the game, showing actually a result of strong defense on both teams' sides. The offense, again, can't quite breaking through the defensive pressure that both teams are putting up. Also a result of, you know, the conditions. The rain definitely not making it any easier to hold on to a disc.
And we've seen that happen quite a few times. Turnovers occurring that wouldn't in drier weather. We had Patterson attacking the end zone, a great jump from his cut to try and receive that disc, but maybe the wind or maybe a slip from the rain just pushing it out of his hands. We've seen the same on both sides. It's just turn after turn. Both teams really needing to use this point to dial in the consistency that we know they're capable of displaying. We've talked a bit about some of the rivalries that we've seen. We've seen HMC and Mobility Scuba typically playing against each other quite a lot. Hamatron Prime and Space Invaders, but there's a lot of history as well between these two teams. Flood coming out on top in this year's Tamaki Throwdown in the regional qualifier last year, things going the other way. There's just been a lot of backwards and forwards between these two teams, particularly as they're from the same region, and so the opportunity for scrimmages and a lot of player mingling and a lot of sort of cross-community communication able to occur.
Now, coming out of this huddle, we're seeing that same matchup with Lamb and Ball. Ball trying to dry off the disc here so she can get as good of a grip on it as she can.
Ella Lamb probably proud of herself after getting a comfortable hand block and applying huge amounts of defensive pressure to probably one of the most confident handlers in the country.
Absolutely. Disc checked in, and it looks like Hamatron is jumping off of a play here. Set play, D'd easily in the end zone.
Charles Patterson going up, scoring the D. Vaughan Wilson not even leaving the ground, recognizing he's just that little bit too late. Coverage from the tall Whitlock, the blue bomber, just in case. Great defensive structure from AUC Flood that we're seeing here. Whitlock in that far corner now.
And an ankle-breaking cut there by Patterson. Back to the handlers. And interesting to see Flood here's running in a vertical stack. A lot of movement now on the field.
Lee marked by Taylor, sends a forehand up over. Eaten by Father Lehigh, number 64. Kapoor for Hamatron Prime.
Not today. And Hamatron utilizing these open passes just to get started. The type of open passes you would see maybe off of a pull, so indicating Flood a bit slow to transition to that defense. And the continuation throw just a bit too far for Ball to hold on to.
Uncharacteristic drops by Ball. Whitlock to take possession. Whitlock and Chong really driving the AUC Flood offense. The two of these young men working in the backspace, really trying to open up.
Ooh.
Great recovery by Lee. Swings to the wide sideline.
What a defensive play there. Again, as I said, catch your Ds. While he got a hand to that disc, it wasn't enough to convert it.
Martin Hogan again on defense, finding great position on the field to keep momentum working in her team's favor. Emma Taylor drops the disc back. Again, the same intense pressure we're seeing from Ella Lamb, number 46,
and
for Flood.
Making clean passes, losing yards here, gaining them back up very easily with a strong undercut.
The drop doesn't come again.
Looking to close the space potentially and this point. Strike cut.
Huge pressure now in that corner by Chong. Gets one up over the top of Simone Ball. Another turn.
Maybe a small gust of wind just took it there. Again, it's not very windy today, but we are seeing these slight gusts pop up, which can be difficult to predict and throw in.
Flood, Whitlock to initiate.
I'm really loving the energy out of this vertical stack. These initiating cuts from Flood, just really driving out. Ankle-breaking jukes, leading to some great unders. We haven't seen very many deep looks go up from them yet. Potentially here, players streaking deep. Whitlock fakes that deep hook. Instead, chooses that under. Just in the safe hands of Lamb.
Ella Lamb, one of the highlight players that we're seeing now, just bringing out a huge amount of intensity. Hopefully that's a bit contagious for the rest of Flood as we see them push in the bronze final. Ling with the disc marked by Ball. There seems to have been a switch up. Ella Lamb saying, I need to cover someone else. I need to get busy. I need to get hungry.
She is everywhere on the field.
Oh, a brutal drop as Whitlock has it, tries to roll over, stripped by the ground.
Just wrestling with the disc there. I think it did a somersault over his body. The slipperiness of it making it difficult to hold on to.
Wilson and Whitlock, the two key scorers in terms of both catches and assists for their team. To the highest point totals for both teams, marking off against each other. Simone Ball marked by Ling on the near sideline. A lot of clogging from great defensive pressure from the Flood, having to go back the other way, finding Crockett open on the center field.
Ooh.
Pressure from Campbell Jordan. A drop from Kapoor sends a big one up. Patterson, clean separation.
Sees it safely into his hands, closing the first point of the game to AUUC Flood.
A great result for them so far. Perhaps a disappointing start for Hamilton Prime. Still anybody's game, a long point. Both teams applying a huge amount of energy to the first point of the game.
And hugs all around, a sense of relief. We see Patterson with his hands on his head, now clapping, let's get this team, let's keep this going. Hands on the head, just feeling a sense of relief for closing out that first point. And regardless of whether it's the first point of the game, the last or even in the middle, there can be a sense of relief for, finishing that up. For both teams, just keeping, drawing that to a close, and opening up, new opportunities with a new, fresh line. People who maybe aren't held back by any potential drops or misfires or miscommunications. People who are fresh legs and ready to get on the field.
And what a surreal point that was. We saw the same play repeating itself 2 or 3 times, the same matchups, the same catches, turnovers, and drops. Just very interesting start to the game. Both teams still with a need to tighten things up. Too many turns for either of those teams to really be happy with. Hamilton Prime coming out on offense now.
And we see them dancing on the line a little bit before that huck came up. Huck goes up.
Lehigh Kapoor trying to get into position.
Ooh!
Huge double coverage.
And
we see Aiden Elliott, one of the defensive superstars on this Flood line, and Peter Boardman as well, but it's not enough. Number 69, Lehigh Kapoor going up for it. Coming down with the point, a short point this time for a change.
Right.
1-all.
Doesn't bite on that baiting early look. We've mentioned this before. Sometimes on defense, even if you know you're missing the disc, just going early can force offense to jump with you to contest that and potentially come down with it. And Lehigh Kapoor saying, no, I can tell you're trying to fake me out, and I'm seeing this safely into my hands here.
And just a really great vision there. Just backing yourself to be able to go up in your own time and know that you can pull that one down. A very important score for Hamilton Prime. Probably not too much in terms of shaking up Flood's momentum. We're just trading at the moment. No teams having made any significant breaks or anything. Nothing to widen up that scoreline.
Bit of conversation. Looks like Hamilton might be coming down person defense, just discussing those matches. And as I mentioned, a few jumps on the sideline. It is getting chilly, which also could play into holding onto the disc. It's harder to catch the disc when your hands are cold. In addition to slippery, having it be slippery with the rain. So we're seeing players dancing on the sideline to stay warm. In the last game, Hammertron versus HMC, we saw Hammertron players jumping around, even running on the sideline to stay warm when they weren't on the field to keep those muscles ready.
Campbell Jordan swings to the near sideline to find more. A great opportunity to send one up, but instead holsters it, keeps it conservative. Ella Lamb again.
Great flow.
Big shot, a lot of wobble.
I think that was the rain there. Wet disc, again, not only an issue when catching, but also when throwing. You need to hold on to it a second, just have a bit of a stronger grip there. Otherwise, it can be difficult. The disc will just turn over.
And it really seems like at the moment on the flood line, it seems like on the flood line, it's the ladies rather who are showing the most composure, seeing the most consistency at the moment. Some of the guys may be looking for a bit more options, trying to hit things in motion, but sacrificing the stability that's necessary in these kind of conditions.
And we're seeing similar beautiful flow from Hammertron right now. The same thing that Flood was throwing. Both these offenses, the flow, the clean decisions I'm seeing them quite similar. And a laser.
Too much edge. A great bid from Ian McLaren, but not enough to keep that off. Rory Moore stopping the roll of the disc, re-establishing position on field.
And a great field vision too from that throw. Just seeing, the width of the field and recognizing the open side, the options that were on the open side. Sometimes when it's just the opposite corner, it can be hard to recognize. Ankle breaking cut coming under. Just ensuring that spacing. Oh.
Just a lot of pressure from Martin Hogan again. Jenny Lang with a bit of a bobble, finds the ground, a turnover, giving Hammertron Prime another opportunity. Both teams hungry to widen the scoreline as much as possible.
Taylor with the disc, looking for ball.
A blade through the middle of the AUC flood defense. Great long shot.
And she was in position.
Briar Bertram in great position, but huge pressure from the flood defense again.
The disc goes up. And it looks like 44 had his hands up. Like, can I get some sideline support here? I want to hear those up calls.
Great score by AUC Flood.
Again, the player taking to the knee there in the end zone. Just a sense of relief almost, like, for scoring that point. It can be frustrating when you're battling uncharacteristic turnovers due to the conditions that you're just not used to. So remembering that is an uncontrollable, the weather isn't uncontrollable, and focusing on what you can do, not getting bogged down by, uncharacteristic turnovers. It looks like it can be a sense of relief to just close that out.
Yeah, just really, really nice offense by Flood. We could see that the Hammertron defenders were out of position. They called a switch. We had Emma Taylor and Hamish Crockett, codename Sprocket, switching players to try and cover that impressive deep cut by Ella Lamb, but her legs just too fast for anyone to keep up with. Great separation, wide open in the end zone for a great score. A nice point, taking it to 2-1 in favor of Flood.
So on defense, we've got Flood coming out here. And person defense has been working quite well. I'm curious if we will see a zone which would force more throws, easier swings. But given that both teams are struggling, just with these little bobbles, misfires, it could be an intelligent decision to potentially run a zone. Instead, we're seeing them coming out person defense, and the pressure on person has resulted in high turnover points. So case in point here.
Michael Downey gets overthrown. Too much coverage from Peter Boardman. We're finding Kiefta again.
Great separation on that undercut.
And again, finding Lee near sideline. Tim Gibbon with a loose mark. A high shot across the field to Elliott, marked by Wilcox.
To run onto it there.
Ooh, and a pick has been called.
So the question now is, did that affect the play? Will the disc go back? When did the pick happen, and does it affect players' position downfield?
So despite it being a non-contact sport, Ultimate, quite often, or prioritizing non-contact perhaps, players will often find that their path of pursuit in defense can be interrupted by the positioning of other players. And so they get the signal that a pick is called, and play often needs to just reposition things to figure out what where people would have been had the pick not occurred.
Strong defense by Gurman there, just shutting down that reset.
Sunny Zoe taking a great dive to try and keep that one alive. A very low, laser-like forehand. A turn, an opportunity for Hammertron Prime now.
Great flow here that Hammertron is displaying. Again, throws off the beginning of the stall. It's got to be the highest of one or two, and Gurman releases it. Looks like a bit of miscommunication between Downey and Gurman there. Downey saying, buddy, I was coming under, you know, I wasn't going deep, that was marked deep, and Gurman really just hoping to make that connection.
Use the width, slide.
We're hearing Flood players on the sideline here saying, use the width of the field, make sure to swing it. And that is something that I think Flood has been doing a really good job of. Great to have that feedback from your teammates on the sideline to remember that you can look horizontally as well as vertically down the field.
Charlesworth with a great undercut to get. Great position, a long shot from Boardman, but
Kim can't quite get there.
Great cut. I love that. Great cut.
Positive feedback.
if nothing else, a great territorial throw by Flood. Hammertron with a long field again to work ahead of them. We know they've got the capability to put those discs up, but it's a question of whether or not they can do that cleanly under the great coverage that we're seeing from the AUC Flood defense. Williams Takata sends a long bomb.
Oh, with
Wilcox
a
takes it.
receiver like that.
Drops back to Gurman. The calm voice on the field, the top gun, the coach. Beth Williams pinned against the far sideline. Kelly Carter making moves. Downey peeling off, looking for a continuation. It doesn't come.
And we're seeing Crossfield hands up, potentially throw me the hammer. There we go. That's what he was looking for. Massive bid, and while I don't think he got a hand to it, definitely enough of that mental pressure to make that defensive play and convert the disc.
The players toppling over like dominoes. Flood with a big layout bid. Lucas Wilcox, just that half-second hesitation, has to lay out himself, misses the disc. Flood with another opportunity, hoping to widen the score up to 3-1. Still anybody's game.
And Flood player Aiden Elliott, we've seen a lot of these really impressive defensive plays by him in previous games. That was a great cut by Lee. Gurman's going to be wanting to work on those ankle exercises to prevent him from breaking them in the future with cuts like that.
But Flood looked to have called another timeout, so we're only 3 points into the game. 2-1 AUC Flood up against Hammertron Prime, the second timeout. Some of these points are taking time, and so it's an opportunity for teams to really just decompress, to take a second, ask themselves, what are we doing out here? Why did we come so far? What can we do to tighten these things up? We're seeing a lot of turns, a sort of mix of unforced errors and great defensive pressure.
We're also seeing water bottles take the field in this timeout, which is unsurprising given, again, the length of the point. So giving players a chance to take a breath from the grind. Hydration is key, you know, rule number one. So players are drinking water and physically resetting in addition to that mental reset. So options, what do you think they're discussing in the huddle here? What's going to come out of it?
Well, Flood, we've seen a lot of improvement in terms of the way that they're opening up the field, particularly by using all of the players as much as possible. So even the less confident throws on the Flood line, we've seen receive the disc, making great cuts. Just maybe a reminder, hey, even if you don't feel like you're one of those key players, those highlight players, you're still a part of the team. You're still integral to our success here. So keep cutting hard, keep pushing. You're opening up the field for us to get the disc to you in an open space.
And you're great to see the sideline support running onto the field to help gather up those drink bottles. Flood definitely has some fans here supporting them, making the trip down from Auckland. 3 whistles indicating there, hey guys, it's ready to start playing again. Don't take too long. Flood setting up in a vertical stack, and it looks like Hammertron is responding with person defense there.
So the near sideline is our open side, the side that Aiden Elliott will be given by Lucas Wilcock on the mark. The rest of the players on defense hoping to shut down the near sideline as Flood begin their attack back upfield.
And we see more poaching into that open space. Violation called. It looks like cuts may have started before the disc was checked in. But more they're standing in the open space, just poaching on that open side to prevent any undercuts, whether it's from the player she's poaching or anyone else here.
And so as Charlesworth, number 68 for the flood line, makes a great undercut, Christine Moore already in position to force that one to be looked off. So those poach players really using their knowledge of space and the game.
And it looks like the Hammertron women are bracketing here. I'm just seeing an open side and a deep side, meaning that they're stopping the undercuts and they're stopping the deep cuts. Bracketing like this can be really effective when you're playing against slightly newer players. Oh no, looks like there might be an injury on the field. Important to recognize though that the AUC Flood players, you know, all across the team are anything but beginners. And we'll see how they can exploit that, or if this bracket does indeed slow down their cuts.
So Christine Moore, a veteran, using her great Frisbee knowledge and experience to sort of poach and force AUC Flood to look elsewhere. Unfortunately injured in that play, so she will leave the field.
We see Anne-Marie McDonald jumping on in her stead. Seeing if the bracketing continues, or they might be transitioning to person defense.
Charlesworth with the disc center field, marked by Kelly Carter. Very aggressive defense. Has to send a high shot up.
Throw.
Manaya Taiapa underneath it. But Connor Kiefter goes up, calls contact.
Looks like no contest there. Spirited discussion on the same page with what happened. Really speedy cuts there.
Big shot goes up. Peter Boardman covered by Downey goes up.
Ooh, bit too soon.
Two bites at the apple, but can't pull it in.
Can't reel it in there. He was going up. You know, you have to give him props for going up early and attacking that. Really dominating that deep, that vertical space, but maybe a bit too soon for him.
Gurman marked out by Lee, very, very busy. Gurman having to work hard to open something up.
McDonald's with the disc, swinging up to the far side of the field.
Carter with a bid once again, just beyond the hands. A turn now and an opportunity for Flood to widen the scoreline, going 3-1 against Hammertron Prime. We've had 2 timeouts called. Has that allowed both teams to really get their heads in, to start dialing in the consistency we know they're capable of? We're seeing a lot of unforced errors. Which team is the first to open that up, to really dial in, is going to be the one that dictates the winner of this match.
An inside look, a great inside out swing pass to Lee, who just pops it up to the point there. Just, you know, that foot that you need to cross the line, and Flood really stoked about scoring that point. High fives all around.
So that takes it to 3-1 in favor of Flood. The conditions less than optimal. Wet discs, wet hands, making those catches a little bit harder, but Flood seem to be, as their name might suggest, adapting to those conditions just a little bit better. We're seeing an early lead taken by the Auckland contingent versus Hammertron Prime from the Waikato region.
Hammertron not ready to give up though just yet. They've been making some beautiful connections. They've been really putting the pressure on defense. And with their quick, sharp throws, honestly, both offensive styles of both teams look quite similar, although the strategies are very different. The hex offense that Hammertron runs is very different from the vertical stack that Flood is using. Nonetheless, the clean open throws, the quick movements, you know, passing the disc against all 0, 1, or 2, really, you know, I'm excited to see Hammertron potentially convert and take this point on offense, show us some of those good clean passes and walk the disc down to the end zone.
Nicholas Whitlock with the pull as Flood come down on defense. A monster of a disc.
Also excited to see this really aggressive, energetic defense that Flood has been bringing.
Wilson struggles to pick it up. Flood setting a cup around the disc. Whitlock keeps it alive, allowing the zone time to reposition, get back in, and start applying that pressure on. Having transitioned to a person defense now.
Great under looks here. Again, with that quick movement that we've been talking about, back to McDonald's. And a bit of a misfire to Downey, who just, he saw it and just looked down. He knew, I can't turn backwards that fast to be able to save that disc. Whitlock smacking it down to the ground to give Flood another chance on offense. Bit of traffic there. Trying to thread the needle through that, couldn't quite make it.
A difficult throw, Stephanie Franson unable to complete there. Hamilton with another opportunity. A lot of clogging on that near sideline, but Wilson comes away with it.
Ooh, laser inside. I think Carter didn't realize that disc was for her. It was a bit of a sharp throw for such a short area. She was quite close for the amount of power that was put on it. They also say in Ultimate Frisbee, if you can catch it, then do it.
A big backhand, but not enough edge on it to curve it back towards Whitlock on a beautiful deep cut.
Seeing another large matchup there, with Whitlock, with a receiver like that, sometimes throwing it up, and making him climb up the ladder, climb up the staircase for it can be beneficial. Instead, they were throwing it into space. He couldn't quite catch up to it. German faking the deep look. German, sorry. And
a second throw, Hazel with a knee block.
That's a creative one. Yeah, you don't see a lot of knee blocks in Ultimate Frisbee.
Stephanie Franson, great opening.
And we
run through D.
We hear her from the sideline shouting to her teammates, "I am poached," demanding to be recognized there. And great to see them making that intelligent decision and throwing it to the player that is poached and open.
Absolutely, and one of the best things about some of these younger Flood players, they're getting very, very aggressive. Not in terms of unspirited play, but in terms of intensity. And we're seeing them get open, get the disc, and be able to leave their footprints on the field and leave their footprints on the play.
Wilson just dancing around there, just juke after juke to get the Frisbee, now in the hands of Carter.
Wide shot, Downey. Unable to pull it down over Elliott on defense.
Out of position. Yeah, great defensive work there. Oh, what great communication. Again, Elliott looking for the reset, just trying to find the options, and then his teammate saying, "Hey, I'm right here in the end zone, and I'm open." Good communication. I'm right in front of you, and Elliott saying, "Oh, yeah, didn't see you there. Here's the disc." Another point for Flood.
And number 36, Campbell Jordan, who we saw in a previous match applying huge amounts of defensive pressure on a mark. Really, really great defensive power from him, but as soon as that turn happens, Aiden Elliott, one of those defensive playmakers for Flood, getting the disc, it's that mental switch off defense back to offense, get into position, get myself open, pull down a score, taking it to 4-1 as Flood go up again.
And it's interesting, as we saw from yesterday, when Flood gets the momentum moving, they're a really hard team to stop. Hammertron over here, they have all of the pieces to really bring it back and close that gap between the score between that 1 and that 4. Right now, I think it's more of themselves. They're misfiring. They're not clasping onto the disc and holding onto it. And again, it is the elements that are contributing to that. But at the same time, when you're the one making the errors, it's that's controllable, and it is within your power to fix that. So I'm excited to see them potentially recognize that and looking to make those clean plays that will result in a point.
A short pull by Peter Boardman finds himself marking against Nicholas Whitlock, but gets Lucas Wilcock, sorry. Goodness, Whitlock and Wilcock. Two mirror matches quite often that we're seeing on the field, but Taiapa on the far sideline holsters a hammer, sends the forehand up.
What a D!
Great pressure by number 5 on the Flood line, Kim.
She just swiped at that like a cat playing with a toy. Yeah, see that energy from the sideline. They're feeling it.
And so Flood now, the momentum in their favor. Hamilton having been able to arrest this momentum before, but Flood unwilling to give up this lead, working hard, staying hungry. Number 47 in the corner.
That's Boardman, and he's been really commanding the field as a handler. Unfortunately, couldn't quite connect with a centering pass there.
Hamilton in the red zone now. Carter looking to be ready to pick up.
And they're pushing their players to the end, really trying to create that space in the middle. Looks like Downey is ISO'd. Just dancing there, shoulder fakes.
Too busy, gets looked off.
Carter with a high release, cleaned up by Downey to put a second point on the board for Hammertron.
A great score again. Just that kind of intensity that we've seen from the Hamilton side, but also those familiar connections. There's a lot of players on that line with a lot of history. Carter and Downey in particular, they've played together on a national level, at a world's level. Seeing them make those connections and just that trust in the teammate, it's nice. We love to see it. The score is still 4-2 in Flood. It may not be enough by itself to keep them in this game. So Hamilton need to dig deep. They need to find something else in the reserves to pull it back, to push Flood as much as they know they can. Flood looking to hold on to a comfortable lead at the moment.
So what did Hammertron do there that was different? How did they generate that turnover and score that point? I think what really came down to was pulling the disc. They really put the pressure on in that zone on the defense. I think that point really goes to the defensive mark. I wasn't sure who was marking the Flood player there in the corner. But really putting pressure, and then when that swing went up, just really contesting that, which also resulted in the turnover. And then when you're on the end zone, they've clearly drilled that end zone play, so capitalizing that and converting that into a point was just drawing on the practice.
Yeah, that was Lucas Wilcock on the mark on Peter Boardman that forced that turn. We're seeing a high disc around from Whitlock. Lee unable to get hands to it. Great chase by Kieran McDonald, number 82 for the Hamilton line as the pull goes up in position to stop that first pass. A great opportunity for Prime now to pull it back to a 1-point game.
Jordan on the mark here, saying this is where it went out of bounds.
And again, that same defensive pressure we saw previously. Pouring it on again, but Ball's able to get free.
Great shuffling movement to stop the around.
Still marked by LLM, so hungry on that defense. A great bite.
Love that matchup.
Let's go next, working hard.
Ball looking for the swing.
Let's go, Ella.
High, but Crockett pulls it down. Trying to shift Chong.
Ooh.
Got a hand to it. Marangi Hogan lays out to try and keep it in possession, but unable to do so. We're seeing Kieran McDonald set up on the mark. Again, Nicholas Whitlock going to take it.
Looks like he's having a brief just check-in. I'm not sure what it's about. Maybe a rule.
The Blue Bomber sends one up.
Oh, a bit too far.
Despite the impressive speed that we've seen from number 46, Ella Lamb, and the great pressure from Ian McLaren, she still had separation, but it was overthrown.
Pretty cool to see that separation. You know, she's streaking deep, and a Hammertron player poaching, peeling off, trying to catch up with it.
Still not close enough to make a play. Using the overthrow on the disc to get the turn. McDonald, Crockett, working through, trying to chip away at the Flood defense.
I love how also more attack to the disc there can be a bit tricky in the rain, given how slippery it is, but he just ran through it. Ball looking deep, looks like the stall's getting higher. Safe into the hands, great cleanup there.
Kieran McDonald, just great legs on the Hamilton line in terms of speed, in terms of explosive running. The kind of runner that you really do want to hit deep as often as you can.
And Ball looking to the open side there, she really wanted that. I think she was saying, open up, wow.
Huge bid by Jordan, but leaving an opening as McLaren unmarked. Threads one through to Crockett,
And,
but a pick was called.
Yeah, when you're on your back like that from running into people, he's got a smile on his face. Like, that really did affect the play there. Looks like the offense is just checking in. Were you within 5 meters? You know, were you actually marking me there? And he's like, yeah, I was though. So here they're getting into a position of where they would have been. And an inside-out pass this time. Instead of exploiting that open side, throwing that beautiful inside-out flick to secure the points.
Yeah, Hamish Crockett with a great score, those same ankle-breaking jukes. We had Chong marking, but looking at the disc, trying to watch where the throw was going to go. Great movement by Crockett, just a couple of side steps, able to get separate for that inside forehand that you said. We go 4-3 now. We have a 1-point game.
And that's another point from Hammertron. I'm excited to see them really capitalizing on just punishing the mistakes, just the slight errors that Flood are having, and safe with the disc and converting these into the points. They're playing the type of game where they are neck and neck, and great to see the score reflecting that a little bit too.
An essential point for Hamilton Prime. AUUC Flood to come out now on offense. We've seen what kind of play they have. They have that versatility, the ability to switch between just a clean, long game and those really precise, tight give and goes that allow them to work up. It really depends on what defense opportunities are being given to them in terms of the Hematron defensive line.
And we hear that 3-2-1 clap indicating that they're ready. You know, we're done. I really like the mental component of that. Everyone clapping at the same time, they're on the same page, and we're all ready to go. Centering the disc.
Campbell Jordan. Bertram tries to get it. Vaughn Wilson with a beautiful run through D to ball.
In position, looking to the break side. Oh, and a bobble results in a turnover.
Kieran McDonald, again, one of those great deep receivers, but not able to get hands to it despite the swift change in momentum as Hematron go on offense. Defense now.
And we're seeing a zone thrown here.
Campbell Jordan shifting the mark. Great throws from that young man. Finds Kate Charlesworth center field.
Ooh, Whitlock taking to the skies, trying to reel that disc in, but couldn't quite get it.
Despite his height, going all the way up, it comes off the fingertips. Hematron with another opportunity to tie the game. McLaren finds Briar Bertram, who has to look back to Simone Ball.
The wind starts gusting a little bit here.
Looking for a confident handler to really attack and target the zone.
Floaty deep look, smacked down once again by the flood player.
Jenny Ling, I believe.
Jenny Ling?
Just a great slash cut across the open zone. Finding that disc, getting possession back in the hands of Flood.
And Hammertron again setting their zone. Or looks like person defense now. Ball expecting an undercut here.
High disc. Anybody's game. Charlesworth goes for the grab, but knocks it to the ground instead.
Again, I think this wind is just gusting and popped it up there. Safe reset. Ooh.
Low shot through, one of those ankle biters. Ball unable to keep it off the ground. Whitlock to pick up. We know he's got the long game. We're hearing the call from the sideline, no huck, no huck.
Switches on players here. Looks like just like a loose defensive structure as players are switching.
A great layout by Emma Taylor, her first in-game, I believe.
Taylor loving that, going for it, and I think it was just that mental pressure. Oh, a D into the hands of his teammate Whitlock, walking up with the disc, looking at that deep option and going for the safe swing.
Ling swinging across the far side to Patterson.
And again, here on defense, they're running relatively person. We've got people matching up. It's difficult to tell what exactly. It looks like a loose zone that they're running.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem to be slowing down Flood too much, although a high disc now. 3 bites before Rory Moore pulls that one down. And the conservation of greatness. It looked good. It was too good to be true. It's a turn. Hematron Prime on offense now. That defense not really slowing down the Flood. It's unforced errors giving them the opportunity rather than their own defensive prowess.
Oh, great inside-out backhand. Popped pass to the point. Wilson with the point there.
So a very, very close, narrow score there for Hematron Prime. A little bit aggressive, a little bit maybe rushed towards the end. It's not the same composure that we've seen them capable of displaying. Certainly not the composure that we're seeing Flood put on display in this game. It's 4-4. Our two teams, just trading points at the moment.
Well, Hammertron has scored the last 3 in a row, I think. The coach recognizing that. Ethan Taylor calling the timeout just to regroup, bring the team together. Hammertron trying to stop the momentum that Hammertron is getting out of these points that they're scoring. They're in a great position. And a lot of, normally in a third place game like this, when 2 teams fighting for the consolation, we wouldn't see this many turnovers, especially from, such experienced seasoned players across both teams. And I think, again, it's indicative of the elements, but it can be frustrating. So it's also going to be important for these players to stay composed and not get riled up, not get worked up at uncharacteristic drops, and not take them too personally.
And I think as well, important to remember that this is the third day of a 3-day tournament. Both teams coming off a loss ahead of time, so they're coming up mentally and emotionally fired up. They want to finish strong. The key thing with odd-numbered placings, it means you finish the tournament on a win. Nobody wants to come this far for a 4th place. 3rd place gets you a medal. 3rd place, there's some esteem associated with it, a place on the pedestal, place on the podium. But there's no denying that after 2 days of incredibly intense frisbee that we've seen from both of these teams, the fatigue does set in. And to work through that, to make sure that that mental energy is manifested in your catches, your throws, your cuts, your defensive intensity, can be a difficult thing to do. These teams evenly matched, backwards and forwards. Flood getting some early leads and then losing it away to Hamilton. It's going to be a great game as we slowly find out over the course of the rest of this half which team is the one to push through, to dial it in, to really get that intensity up.
So we've got Flood walking to the line here after a reset, mentally focusing in. We're starting on offense. Let's just make a clean, beautiful point. Let's walk it down the field, or let's find a really great deep option and put up a composed throw. Meanwhile, Hammertron firing out, getting down the field there, setting a big mark.
Briar Bertram again, probably some of the fastest legs on the Hamilton ladies side. A huge chase down to force that first pass to go back center field. Swings instead of any gains. Ella Lamb on the far sideline now.
Looks like a junk was what was happening before. Junk they're running here, which was what I was struggling to just see from the sideline.
Ooh, contact and a tumble.
Collision over there.
Just want to highlight the amount of work Ella Lamb is putting in this game. We're seeing her just get every second or third touch on the disc. She's got consistent throws, even through those narrow windows, being forced to the far sideline. Still hugely intense cuts, getting separation. We saw her before, despite one of the Hamilton males peeling off the back of the zone to try and poach. Still nowhere near her. Just really, really fantastic play from these Flood players.
And you know, I'm sad we didn't get to see more of that yesterday. Oh, great run through D. I wanted to mention I'm sad we didn't get to see that yesterday, and while part of that might have been Lamb's mental game, she maybe wasn't quite there, it also comes down to the teammates, you know, maybe just not putting those discs and passing big up to a player, and she's got so much separation. What a way to finish that point.
That is the kind of throw that you want to put up when you see one of your speedy receivers just take off, have comfortable separation. Hopefully the high from that will be enough to pull Briar Bertram away from the sport of lacrosse. Make her one of those household names in New Zealand Ultimate with a great score like that. Hamilton Prime, a fantastic break as they pull ahead for the first time in the bronze final of the New Zealand Division 1 Mixed Ultimate Championships in Kirikiriroa, Hamilton.
That is the 4th point in a row for them. They're riding this high. In other games, we've seen these teams trading with the opposition, and here it's 2 to 3 points at a time. At this point, Hammertron 4, and with a point like that, you know, the momentum really can carry through. The entire team flooding onto the field, while Flood is in the other end zone, flooding onto the field to celebrate that.
And the rain looks to come down heavier in response. Flood still not counted out of this game, only 1 point behind. We have, in this tournament alone, seen them come back from a wider deficits from that, particularly in their great game that they had against Huripari, one of the dark horses of the tournament. Flood able to pull off an upset, winning the game on Universe Point with an intensity that we're hoping to see from them throughout the rest of this game.
And Flood still treading water at the moment, still staying in this game, looking to make some clean passes on offense here. Great swinging movement.
Sunny Zoe finding Lee on the reset. Hamilton coming down in a kind of loose hexagonal zone.
Ooh.
A great up by Charlesworth to pull that one down over ball as she goes early. But it looks like there might have been a bit of contact, a possible injury called.
That was great. You know, Charlesworth had the aggression going into that, and she just climbed up the staircase to scoop that out of the sky, spread her wings a little bit.
It seems like the conversation might have been whether or not Simone Ball might have had a second opportunity at that disc had that contact not been initiated. And we see some emphatic gestures indicating perhaps what the nature of the contact might have been.
Right, and they're weighing in from other players on the field now, asking for best perspective, even from the sideline now. We've got a Hammertron player weighing in at what he thought. Wilcock, saying from the sideline, this is what I saw, guys, and I had a good perspective of the play.
But it's, again, important to remember that despite this being a match for the medal, the bronze final in the Division 1 Mixed Ultimate Championships, both teams taking the time to communicate, to express themselves calmly, utilizing the communication skills developed through years and years of playing Ultimate. It's a self-officiated sport. The players taking it upon themselves to referee their own games, making their own calls, and resolving them as amicably as possible.
Looks like the disc goes back, which means it was contested. And while you're talking about the third medal place, also Spirit is still up in the air, and Spirit is a medal, it's an award all on its own as well. For the most spirited team who shows the most sportsmanship.
Looking to reset, that one gets bobbled up by Peter Boardman. Hammertron to take possession, Martin Hogan center field.
We're seeing quite a bit of contact, and I think that's players just trying to run through the traffic. It's appears to be rush hour.
Simone Ball, center field. Great tip by Charlesworth, but Wilson keeps that one alive.
Yeah, piece on the disc there.
Those are just the prettiest kind of blocks to watch. But again, as you keep saying, catch your Ds. Hammertron
charging
retain position.
upfield with a strike cut there, looking across for the clean point, and maybe that separation there was due to a pick, due to some contact happening.
So again, play will stop as we resolve the issue here.
Nonetheless, Ball just showing some great field awareness, looking not just in front of her, but also across to the other side of the end zone to find the player. We've got Whitlock walking onto the field to potentially help out, and they're calling it a point. Impressive display of spirit by both teams. Great communication.
So the score now 6-4 in favor of Hammertron after managing to claw back a great early lead by Flood, swinging the momentum in the other direction, giving the signal that 4 ladies from each team should take the field, 3 men.
And Taylor now walking on the field with his team. He's been providing the feedback in between points, calling lines, directing strategy, and I'm curious what's going on in his mind now. What can Flood do? Hammertron is just pushing through. They've come back and they're looking to potentially take half. And what can Flood do to stop that momentum? For Hammertron to do this, I think it was just stopping the little mistakes, the little bobbles. The ball was in their court. They were the ones messing it up, and they fixed that. Props to them for that, and it's carrying them through. So now Flood, what can they do? What is the answer? With this issue, what's happening on offense that they can fix? What is that controllable piece so that they can continue to make the connections and bring the points up just like they were doing in the beginning?
Absolutely, and I think we're seeing a huge work put in by the Flood defensive line. Great pressure from those defensive players, able to slow down Hammertron. It really does come down to the AUC Flood's offense and what mistakes they're making that the defensive line of Hammertron are able to capitalize on.
Great sweeping swing past the far side of the field.
Chong sends a laser. Ling keeps it, takes a knee. Patterson in great position to continue for a score. The zone from Hammertron resetting, a little bit of shoulder contact, finds Chong. Branson calling for the disc.
He is directing right where he wants that receiver to be. No one's there, so he does holster that.
Ling back to Chong.
He wants that around throw, doesn't he?
Absolutely. Whitlock on the far sideline.
Maybe. Yeah, the creativity with the throws there.
Just going over the top of the mark. A bit of a height mismatch there on number 8, Nicholas Whitlock.
And their zone, Hammertron zone definitely slowing this down. forcing the throws, and while those throws are clean, you know, you are bound to make some mistakes. The more throws you put up, the more likely you are to make a mistake there. Hammertron realizing that and putting the pressure on, waiting for that to happen. And now it's in Flood's court, really, when they're on offense to just keep it clean and avoid those mistakes. Intense defense now by Flood.
Simone Ball threads one through. Ian McLaren near sideline. We've been here before.
Ball
Up and around.
yards upfield, going for that strike cut.
Ball with a one-handed grab. Now needing someone to get free, someone to find separation, to open up this zone.
McLaren with a disc, looking to make an assist. Ball running into that open side, juking back, forward, back, and seeing the disc enter her hands.
A great score by Simone Ball. Hammertron going up 7-4 against the AUC Flood. Momentum swinging back in the other direction. 1 point away from them taking half. AUC Flood needing 1 point in 3 breaks to take halftime, and the psychological advantage that comes with it.
Absolutely, and this has been really an interesting game to watch. I think both teams really, you know, doing a great job. They're contesting everything. They're providing, just they're making problems for each other, and they're responding on offense similarly. And it's interesting to see how Flood really came out firing. You know, they were up and they had that energy. Hammertron responding, and they've just been successful now in tripping that up, you know, just providing enough barriers, providing that pressure on defense to just say, you know, they're forcing the mistakes to happen.
AUC Flood looking to take a timeout. However, there is only 1 timeout per half and 1 floating. Flood seem to have taken 2 already, so they are denied the opportunity to stop that Hammertron momentum. This is a great moment for Prime now, knowing that their opposition don't have any more timeouts this half. They will once the first team reaches 8 points, but until then, there's not necessarily anything they can do to just take a moment away from the game to get back in their own heads, or out of their own heads as the case may be. Just really reconsolidate everything as a team. So the play must continue. They're going to have to use those few seconds that they have on the line to really reevaluate the strategy, figure out what isn't working as Hammertron come down on defense again.
The disc goes up, great pull in the end zone. However, they get time to center it to the middle of the field. Boardman to
Nice
Whitlock.
Lefty around. Whitlock sends a big one.
And
McLaren with a big chase, but
look
Sonny
at
Zo's in great position for an
separation.
almost score just outside of the zone. LLM on the right-hand side, a great option, but looked off.
Wow.
Kiefter
Wow.
walks that one on. The timeout might not have been necessary anyway. Great score, great patience by the AUC Flood. Would have been nice. LLM on that near sideline. A great deep cut. Would have been great to see her get another point. Flood able to close it out anyway.
What I'd like to see there, though, was that, you know, this zone that Hammertron has been throwing has really been causing some issues for Flood. Flood's been, you know, they have the pieces to break it. They know what they need to do, but they've just been, they've been forcing these little areas and then capitalizing on them. That's what Hammertron's been doing. And what happens there was they had the zone set up, and the deep was just slightly out of position. And great to see Flood recognizing that and just punishing them for that. Whitlock with that beautiful deep throw, saying, like, I see that separation, and I'm gonna say you can't catch up to that player. You know, I know Zoe, I know her as a receiver. She's my teammate, and she's safe in the air, and she's got the wheels to catch what I'm gonna put up.
Just great vision there by number 8, Nicholas Whitlock, the blue bomber on the Flood line. Flood to come out on defense now as we score 7-5. Hammertron Prime 1 point away from taking half, but Flood with the momentum back in their favor. A great defensive pull.
And interesting to see a few of the players, instead of catching the pulls, which could be dangerous in this drizzly weather, have instead been trapping it on the ground once it hits the ground to stop it from rolling any farther.
Again, as nice as it can be to catch the pull and immediately initiate an offense, having to play a bit conservatively in less than ideal conditions is what we're seeing now.
And we have seen already today a dropped pull result in a point. Hammertron dropped the pull in marvelous DC. We've got it Hawk to Gurman. While there's contact there, he stays with that.
Immediate continuation to the Speedy Williams to close that one out as Hammertron Prime take half. Flood might bring the rain, but Hammertron are bringing the storm. My name is Blair Monroe,
And I'm Kelsey Bielik.
and we will be back with the second half of this, the bronze final of the Division 1 New Zealand Mixed Ultimate Championships, very soon.
UUC Flood versus Hammertron for the 3rd, 4th place at the new Division 1 New Zealand Mixed Ultimate Frisbee Championships. My name is Kelsey Bielik,
I'm Blair Monroe.
and we are your eyes and ears on the ground in the second half of this game. Flood with the pull down the field, and the game has been an exciting one thus far, with both teams really carrying the momentum until the other one figures out a way to unlock a response and charge through with a few more points. Right now, Hammertron in the lead.
So it's still only 3 points. Hammertron having taken half. Flood behind by 3, but still in a great position to pull off a comeback, the kind of which we know they are capable.
And Flood, previously sticking with the person defense, is now throwing a zone.
Michael Downey now with the disc. To Beth Williams approaching that far sideline. Not a lot opening up upfield. We're seeing some nice undercuts, but being looked off. We're seeing a lot of those handlers just keep working this between themselves, hoping to open something up. Huge separation is Christine Moore, wide open in the end zone, but nothing's evolving enough to get the disc down to her, despite the confident throws from Carter and Downey.
Holstered for the safe swings. Downey and Carter just moving the disc here, looking for each other. And this zone with the pressure on the disc, it's quite flat. They're forcing those swing movements. What they're trying to do is stop many downfield passes. Leaving those wide swing passes open. At the same time, forcing more touches on the disc could lead to a turnover. We've seen so many uncharacteristic drops in this game thus far due to the wet disc, potentially cold hands, not facing Hammertron at the moment.
Manaya Taiapa now getting involved, having to work the zone, getting a great bid out of Connor Kiefter, but the disc swings to the far sideline. He's out of position. They keep moving it, trying to break that zone, just making sure those key players in the front of the defense are forced to keep running, tiring them out. They know that they can make this a long point. As long as Hammertron can keep those passes consistent, keep catching them, they can keep the zone working. The zone will get tired. Maybe it'll get out of position. That's when Hammertron are planning to strike. Flood hoping to do everything they can to stop that from happening.
And you know, what I'm curious to see here is these handlers are displaying so much patience, just swinging the disc safely. And it can be so tempting to find an open player downfield and launch it to them. Also, can be a riskier throw to make. Will they continue to swing?
Charlesworth with a rapier-like jab, but unable to get to it.
Will they continue to swing and just work the disc slowly down the field, which they're doing so well right now? Will make for a long point, or will they find one of those open players downfield and launch it there? Downey making some movement and can't quite come down with it. A bid from both teams.
Peter Boardman, number 47 for the Flood, having to tie up his shoes after that untangling as the two players get up off the ground. Great defensive pressure by the Flood, exactly what they were hoping for. Maybe forcing the Hammertron offense to get a little bit frustrated, forcing a throw they might not have wanted to take. Flood with a great opportunity now, far sideline, more on the mark. We're seeing D. Kim working through.
Downey with a swipe, seeing that they're wanting that upline pass and just reaching out with his wingspan and slapping that disc down. Carter picking up the disc on offense.
Those two great players, Michael Downey, Peter Boardman, facing off against one another. Boardman defending against Downey. Downey returning in kind as Hammertron continue their offense. Wilcock to Williams on the near sideline.
This puts Hammertron in a great place again. We're seeing these chilly, clean passes, but it can be a bit of a mental just difficulty seeing, while we've been swinging it so well, but actually progress is slow in his zone. They're making great movement right now through the cut, but it can take so long, and seeing the road ahead of you and how long it is. Not phasing these handlers as they're just making the beautiful passes to the open players on the field.
And that really can be one of the sort of philosophical or mindset switches necessary when you are prioritizing that give and go, clean, handler movement kind of play. Just forget about the end zone. Just worry about walking the disc forward. Scoring will happen eventually if you're patient enough. And Hammertron have shown that they are capable of exhibiting that patience, although when catching it, Williams manages to keep it alive.
Love these feisty marks here. Charlesworth getting in there. We're seeing that, you know, these players just jumping on the disc, putting up the big mark. Contact called.
No, it looks like the disc was down,
It was down,
as Wilcock took to the ground to keep it in possession. The wind blowing towards your near sideline now.
And power position, launching it deep, and it's a bit too much.
Despite the impressive speed that we have seen from Connor Keeper thus far, not enough there. A lot of edge on that disc, not a lot of float. So all of that hard work by the Hamilton offense as they work the disc up the field, that patient swinging handler offense, having to work all the way back up the field, must be a little disheartening for them.
And the wind's picking up a little bit here, which will only help the zone, adding that 8th defender to the field.
It looks like an injury was called. Christine Moore going to be leaving the field, replaced by Simone Ball. So giving the Flood players an opportunity to have a substitution of their own. They do not seem to have taken it.
Downey walking up to initiate the offense on the end zone line.
Manaya Taiapa joining that handler set, working through with Kelly Carter and Michael Downey.
Carter directing traffic there, high release to that line. And this is a strong handler line here. Safe throws and lots of experience.
Just trying to catch that zone out position. Two players walking the disc up the field,
Yeah.
gaining a comfortable 15-20 meters before the zone repositions.
Downey and Carter, yeah, definitely taking advantage of that quick movement while the Cup's out of position to gain those extra meters. Big fakes by Downey to move Charlesworth on the mark there.
Wilcock hoping to use the height mismatch a little bit, having to swing back, finding Simone Ball near sideline. Great defensive pressure that we're seeing from the Flood players. Despite the agility of some of these Hamilton players, the pressure's too much, the throws are not coming through. The Flood players slowly pushing the Hamilton offense back, slowly opening up an opportunity for maybe a run-through score, a Callahan even.
And we're seeing great movement here while this Flood zone really is putting pressure on the throws, and it's already resulted in one turnover. We'll see if it results in another. Putting a zone on such seasoned handlers like Ball, Downey, Carter, it can mean, it's their happy place. Handlers like this love zones because, it's a puzzle. It's, what is it but a problem to solve?
Absolutely, and in our next game, when we see Marvelous DC take on HMC for the final match of the Division 1 Mixed Ultimate Championships, we're going to see the same kind of thing, particularly from the HMC line. Tom Fraser, Joe Panaya in particular, those handlers that love working through a zone.
And they're really making progression downfield, easily finding Carter open in the middle there. And just touched. It's not enough.
Elliot, the defensive, like the iron wall of the AUC Flood, just that man in the deep space. We've seen such great defensive efforts from him. Flying bid, tips the back edge of the disc, but Anne-Marie McDonald able to score, taking it to 9-5. Another long point, a happy point for Hamatron.
And attempted, bids like that. It's great to see. It really makes for some exciting ultimate frisbee. But to also look at that, the fact that he was pushed to bid. I mean, great to see him putting his body on the line. He really wanted that defensive play. But there's different times when you lay out on defense, and there are arguments as well that you should never have to lay out on defense. It can be really beneficial in generating a turnover. A lot of times players will go for a baiting D to get that turnover, as opposed to a different style of defense where you're in the place you need to be and you're just shutting down the throw from being made. So I think what he was going for there was generating a turnover, bit risky when you're in the end zone and it could result in a point. Nonetheless, props to really putting his body on the line, and makes for some exciting frisbee.
Just an absolute great display from Flood. As you say, baiting that defense, trying to create an opening. You'll be able to cover, and just hoping that the opposition start to develop that tunnel vision. They start to focus in on that end zone fever, and just waiting for them to throw to a space you'll be able to cover before the receiver can get to it.
A big pull comes down the field, and the wind has picked up a little bit. It's not quite as strong as it was yesterday or the day before on Friday. However, it is blowing, for your reference. Generally, it feels a bit cross-field, coming from the far side of the field toward the camera there. It's gusty coming up, and definitely played with the pull a little bit there.
Rory Moore with the disc on the far sideline now. That same small disc movement that we saw Flood use to great effect against Marvelous DC despite the imbalance in play. So a call looks to have been made. We can see Hammertron establishing a tight cup around that, around the disc.
I'm interested to see here Lamb, who's been dominating the handler space, really providing a safe reset, great throws, and helping to coordinate and run traffic for the zone offense. She's on the wing now, looking at spending some time downfield. Or was it also the coach saying, hey, we want to put you in this deep position. We know you're safe deep and we know you're safe hands, and we want to, switch things up.
And really that's one great thing to see with a team like this, that there's a lot of trust, players able to trust their teammates to occupy different roles, to fill in niches where necessary. When our offense isn't working, why isn't it working? We need more deep threats. You know who can run deep? Ella Lamb, number 46. In great position again, Ian McLaren covering that ground to secure a turn.
And Hammertron, sorry, just with a really rapid transition here that's gotten them to the end zone line before Flood can really set the defense on. And they're still running uncontested. It looks like the defense was just a bit slow to set in response there. Flood was still maybe an offensive mindset.
You can see Emma Taylor now taking a knee.
To see the disc into the bread basket. Biscuit in the basket for the point for Hammertron.
Great score as we go up 10-5 against Flood. Hammertron Prime taking the opportunity to cement a lead that they have. Again, just as we're talking, the way that Flood were working, it's kind of a mixture of the last couple of points that we've raised, right? Trusting your teammate to get into position, but also having the defense baiting those throws, saying, we know you want to hit those speedy players. Ella Lamb, the fast legs, we know you want to get the disc to Nick Whitlock because he's got those big throws. Can we set up a defense in such a way that we make you think you have that option, but we're going to take it away? Flood's done the same thing. We've seen Aiden Elliott do amazing work in that space.
Absolutely.
Just run-throughs. We're seeing the momentum swing so fast in one direction or the other because that iron wall just clamps down, gets those quick turns, and Flood uses those, particularly in that great game that we saw them play against Hoodie Putty.
High floaty pull to be seen into the hands of Boardman.
Whitlock takes the disc, working with Charlesworth. Again, Charlesworth and Boardman, we're seeing those two make some great connections. Elliott as well getting involved.
And Hammertron still running this zone that's been working so well for them.
Kiefto with a wide shot across field to open that up. Boardman swinging back to Whitlock once the defense is out of position.
Oh, beautiful.
Lamb again.
Inside out.
Yes!
And she comes down with it there.
A great score, a reversal of fortunes over the previous point. Again, we had McLaren poaching out of nowhere, trying to shut down Ella Lamb as a threat. He was able to do it last time. He wasn't able to do it this time. It's great to see, particularly as the Flood players are developing over the course of this tournament. We're seeing them discover strengths that maybe they didn't even know they had themselves. We're going 9-6 now.
You know, I really like that point there. Just Whitlock seeing the throw and pulling it out of his arsenal and inside out forehand. Like, what a beautiful throw to that, Lamb streaking deep and seeing her still attack it and hold on to it under that defensive pressure. That was a great point. Well deserved. Rain seemingly coming down even harder. And Flood is ready. Water the element for them here. Setting up their defense. Will they be running a zone as they pulled out and for the second half, or will they be looking at playing person, which has been working out really well for them as well? Massive inside out pull.
Downey to pick up.
Downey to Carter. Gurman faking a big deep look and swinging it safely into the hands of Downey. We've got a scoober over the top.
Downey's bread and butter throw. We see it in his fakes. Gets one across to Wilcock. Just swinging the disc backwards and forwards. Carter to clean that one up as it goes over the hands of the lanky young man, number 31. Tim Gurman now getting involved. That cool head you love to see on an offensive line. Just great, calm coaching. Good on-field presence, keeping everybody focused.
And when you know that your handlers do have over-the-top throws like Downey's been putting there, and a few of the others, we're seeing not many crashes. Instead, the players downfield are looking for open options. They're just looking at standing in open space and waiting for the handlers to hit them, or the handlers, just looking at making those swing options that are being opened up for them.
Now, Kelsey, when you say crash, you're talking about the zone offense used by, in this case, Hamilton to try and work through that cup, having players cutting right back in to replace handlers or to just give sort of quicker resets to keep that stall count low.
Right, so that would lead to a really small pop pass in a really small space. Instead, these sweeping throws are what Hammertron is using successfully now to work the disc into that end zone area, approaching ever closer.
Wobbly disc, but Gurman keeps it in hand.
Clarifying, no foul.
Carter to Wilcock, far sideline in that far corner.
And they're still swinging, finding the easy options.
So close they can almost taste it. Flood still not willing to turn off the taps to keep that pressure on.
Great fakes there, bringing the mark with him.
We find ourselves in the same position that we were before. High shot over the top.
Can Downey come down with it? No, what a defensive play by Elliott once again.
Again, number 13 for the Flood. One of the men of the tournament, undoubtedly, with the amount of defensive pressure that he's able to just turn on at a moment's notice. And even though Hamilton patiently working the disc backwards and forwards, that zone being worked around, doing its job, frustrating the offense enough to send one over the top for the iron wall to bring it down.
And interesting to see also how successful they were in keeping that zone going through the end zone instead of transitioning to a person defense. A big hot comes up, and I'm not sure if that was it was on the throw. Looks like there was a foul.
It didn't come out at the angle Elliott intended, I can tell you that.
On defense now, we're seeing Hammertron running person, but the women are still doing a bit of bracketing on the open side, bracketing again, covering the deep space and the under space, which is you could say a mini zone between two people. And the way to defeat that, Auckland's thus far not having too much issue with it, would be to send two players into that under space or deep space, what we would say a double cut.
To flood that space, one might say, with players. And just remembering that a defensive player can't take away the threat by two well-coordinated offensive players. You have to, at some point, as a defender, pick one, commit to it, and that's going to leave someone else open for particularly some of these talented throwers on the Flood team to thread the needle through, to get the disc to them, and then you're out of position. So we'll see whether or not Flood, Stephanie Franson, number 24, dancing on the field even to try and
stay
keep warm.
Looks like there was a substitution there. Downey, maybe with a nosebleed, hopefully not too serious. So after that, they're looking at resetting the play.
Substituting for Vaughn Wilson, number 95 on the Hamilton line.
And zone number 88 looking wide for that.
Connor Keister now. Lots of calls from the players. They're Connor,
they're
pass to me.
Deep. We see they're anxious. Boardman especially is anxious for that deep option. It finally comes up.
Great positioning and great vision by Carter to recognize the disc was fading down a lot, get a hand to it before Peter Boardman could capitalize.
Yeah, and they're trusting the receiver there, but it is always dangerous sending a deep disc when there's double coverage on the player you're hoping to receive it.
Especially when you've got players like Kelly Carter, one of those just speedy, grindy workhorses. Simone Ball lets the disc fall to turf as Wilcock tries to hit it in motion.
But also just giving space to recognize that beautiful outside-in forehand that was put up there. dropping over the top of the zone. Anyway, we've got Hammertron on defense now.
Elliott with a low release forehand to find Peter Boardman, marked by Wilson. Working around Connor Kiefter, using his separation to find Jordan on the near sideline.
An attempted foot block. Maybe that's what caused the disc, to be a slightly misreleased. It popped up there just a bit too high. And
D. Kim just leaving Earth to try and grab that one. Comes off the fingertips. Tim Gurman calling a timeout. A veteran call, just recognizing how long this point is, how fatigued the players are. Give them a chance, catch their breath, rehydrate. Look at what is working, find the space, talk about some of the key plays, some of the key things that did allow each player, or each team rather, to gain ground, or what allowed them to force their opposition to lose ground. So a great timeout call.
And energy seems to be a bit low on the field again. When there are so many turnovers, it can be a bit demoralizing when you're doing your best and you're just not used to having that happen, resulting in long points that you just need to grind through. We've still got some grins, got some smiles on the field, so good to see it's not getting anyone down too much.
Now, if you were Flood, looking at the way they're playing now, they're putting on great amounts of intensity. They're just having that little bit of trouble closing out. What would you change about the way they're playing?
It comes down to the patience when when you've had possession and you've been making those looks and you're making the safe options. And, downfield, it can be a bit frustrating when you're creating space and making the looks. And it can be a bit sad when you're a cutter and you've been grinding and you're looked off, but creating space really can open up a safer option. When you make a cut, you could be bringing two defenders with you to open up a safer option. So I honestly would have to say, if you're looking to execute and, transition that into a point in the end zone, potentially just having that patience. At the same time, while that bracketing hasn't been causing too many issues, Hammertron's bracketing on defense, they could touch on that, recognize that, and say, hey, if they do this again, let's use that to our advantage. Because we're going to have, an open player, but at the same time, if it hasn't been too much of a problem, then, no, not necessarily a need to address that.
Yeah. And
So-
if it were me, I'd do the same thing. Back the ladies, we know Ella Lamb, Hazel Yu, Sunny Zoe, they're able to get separation, they're able to get open, and just remind ourselves, back those players. We trust our team. It's sharing the disc. That's what's going to determine who wins this match.
So we see Flood coming down in a zone, and Hammertron with a lot of handlers back.
So again, that same Hex offense we've talked about, just trying to work the disc backwards and forwards until something opens up. We've got some big guns on the field. Tim Gurman, Manaya Taiapa.
And while they do have, those big guns, the cannons, in reserve, ready to launch it downfield, we are seeing a lot of really collected ultimate, not getting to that, angsty, feisty point where you just want to launch it. They are making the collected decisions, and which has been really good for them, especially in the zone.
And so despite the rain, these teams' fires are not yet put out. Huge intensity on defense as the Flood Cup, or Arrowhead by the looks of things, tries to hunt down an opportunity for a turn. Hammertron still working backwards and forwards, targeting both sidelines, trying to reposition that cup. Oh, great run from Tim Gurman, but Hayden Elliott, out of nowhere again, just instantly switching the tide of the game.
Oh,
Great bid by Wilcock, but Kiefter keeps it. It's beyond the hand, Simone Ball. A great layout by Kim.
Yep,
Not able to get a hand to it.
backwards roll to safely pop up from there, but Ball's pressure on defense just, pushing it down. Hammertron again on offense. Carter with the disc looking to center to Gurman.
Oh, the wind definitely picking up now, pushing back towards your near sideline. We're feeling it here in the booth, but probably not as much as the players are on the field. Short, controlled throws, trying to really work with and against the wind, just using the width of the field, hoping to shift the positioning of that cup.
Great offensive pressure there, although not enough to bring the disc down. Hammertron quickly bringing the disc past halfway. I know they must be excited that they're able to be looking through the cup. They're successfully, finding those shots through, back to swinging. But what making those shots through, really gaining the yards with them.
Gurman now on the far sideline, facing down the aggressive cup that we're seeing from the Flood defense. Just those same short pop passes, being forced to move laterally, not gaining any yardage upfield, losing yardage as the Hamilton Prime offense are pushed back slowly by the aggressive Flood defense.
Wilcock through to Carter here. These handlers just working, slowly chipping away.
Really is great to see. It's good clinical ultimate, just very tactical, brilliant defense that we are seeing from these teams on field at the moment.
And again, with these experienced handlers, they're not biting at those potentially dangerous options. Can be a bit wearing downfield, just waiting for your opportunity to get open. But
that really is the purpose of a zone. It's just to
is.
force as many passes as possible until you either get frustrated and throw a low percentage option, or just have the cold and the wet set in and cause a turn.
And the time to shine downfield definitely can come in, especially towards the end, when you maintaining that space and finding that open space can finally be hit for the point.
But still, nothing opening up.
Definitely a handler's game at the moment.
The zone just arresting any efforts by Hamilton to really work the downfield. So it's all very narrow, very close quarters. Yes, we're seeing some wide swings, but it's those chips through the middle that are going to help here. We're seeing some momentum build, but swings back the other way.
What's really exciting about this point, though, is that this is one of the longest possessions we've seen this game. So, indicative of Hammertron really learning from the bobbles and what they need to do to make the safe catches with the wet disc, with the wind picking up.
And just, it's that patience, again, that calm head. I know if I were on the field, I'd probably have already tried to put up a hammer to no one just to be sick of swinging it, sick of having to work around that flood zone. But Hamilton Prime just staying calm, staying patient.
What a step out there. That pivot, Wilcox just, what a step out. Carter with the disc on the high side.
Great swings. You can see the zone having to really bury head to keep that momentum up as they reposition.
And also
starting to slow.
When you're on defense there, not only as handlers can you feel the pull to launch it downfield. Also, when you're in that cup and handlers are just making you run back and forth, you're starting to feel like, it's just the repeat. It's the repeat. It can be really draining on defense. I think it looks like a call. Carter scooped it up, but we're not sure if it touched the ground first. They're having a conversation about it. I think everyone else on the field really cherishing this time to take a break, or at least think about something other than, that the focus of the zone, covering the space you need to cover, or trying to get open and making those clean, safe options.
So, players just taking a few moments.
Kim stretching in the middle of the field there.
Just waiting for the call to be resolved.
So, if it stands and Carter agrees that did hit the ground first, it will result in a turnover. If there is disagreement, then the disc may be sent back. They might be talking about whether the disc is fit to keep in play.
Carter going to ground to keep that one alive. We've talked numerous times. As hungry as these players are, the last thing you want on the frisbee field is a taco when the disc is bent. It's going to interfere with its ability to fly.
Which is also sad. There was a virgin disc brought out for this game, fresh out of the packaging. Sad to see it tacoed so soon, but
we saw the same in the previous game, Marvelous DC, playing off against Flood in the semis.
In a game like this, you don't want to be playing with a broken disc. You don't want to be playing with a broken disc ever.
So that looks like it will be a turnover now. Peter Boardman to pick up the disc for the Flood offense.
And we see Kim flooding deep there. Ooh, covered quickly.
Aiden Elliott against Vaughn Wilson now, looking to open something up.
Quick closing speed there defensively.
Just calm disc work that we're seeing now by the Flood. The same that we were seeing before from the Hammertron offense.
Ooh, and just that pressure in there. Gurman forcing that turnover. Not sure if he did get a hand in there to bobble that disc up, but, you know, could have even just been the pressure on the catch that resulted in the drop.
And so, Hammertron Prime right in the red zone. The Cup more aggressive now, trying to wrap around, trying to close off all the opposition.
Ooh!
An air bounce backhand from Vaughn Wilson to Tim Gurman in the end zone. Just control over the disc, good knowledge of sort of body mechanics and disc mechanics and the flight of the 175 grams of plastic that we're working with to get it to scoop like a Nike swoosh and saying to Gurman, just do it.
And I think an impressive display there, not just of throwing mechanics, but of flexibility. Displaying the, you know, range of skills that it's great to have to play ultimate frisbee. Obviously speed, agility, but also, you know, flexibility can really allow you to unlock a new range of throws, to step out in ways to get around the mark, or in this case around the cup, slicing through there.
A great finish to a very, very long point. Both of these teams leaving nothing on the sidelines, leaving it all on the field as we go 11-6 now. Hammertron up by 5. Flood still in their element, still in it. Very, very hungry for some middleware.
And we hear some "Let's go Flood" from the sideline. The fans here trying to bring the team up, keep that energy alive. We're in the latter half of the game. And if Flood can bring up that energy, you know, we've seen them do it before.
Just good disc movement again. We're seeing some of those same confident handlers. It's a bit, Whitlock fast enough to keep that one.
Ooh, just a bit too high.
Iris Lee getting underneath it. The wind, a little bit of interference. It's enough to offset it. Hamish Crockett.
And massive swings, just demanding that the mark get out of the way, but couldn't quite execute.
Whitlock sends a high angle forehand around to Patterson on the far sideline now.
And he's seeing that downwind look.
Ben Chong with a layout, going to ground to keep the disc in his hands.
Scooping it up there.
Patterson doing the same and almost belly flop to keep that one. Ella Lamb, again, we keep talking about her receptive power, just her ability to get separation, to get free. And hopefully we'll see the strength of her throws able to close this point off.
She's on the low side of the field there, but Hammertron puts too much pressure on the defense. It looked like the stall was getting high, so she really wanted to stick with that dump reset. Give them the extra time to get open, but couldn't quite make it. Quick movement. Oh, and I think that disc was down.
Ian McLaren with a great attempt, getting back into possession, playing the defense that he loves. Whitlock sends it, the bomber.
Oh!
Patterson.
Just shy of the end zone. Looking for the assist and resetting.
So Chong now, Patterson, that end zone offense that the Flood have no doubt drilled countless times during this season.
And interesting to see that Hammertron, they're in their zone right now, so they haven't converted to person defense. We have seen their zone quite successful in the end zone. Requires precision focus. You know, if you lose that focus for a moment, a player could sneak open, as happened right there. Catching Hammertron out of position and securing the points.
Patterson threading one through to a static receiver, but a call was made, a travel on the throw.
Arguing, it looks like that momentum may have switched. So when you catch the frisbee, you can slow down. You do have a few steps to slow down with it, but it looks like they're arguing that they changed momentum. They're touching base, and it looks like the goal stands.
So 11-7 now. Flood putting a much-needed point on the board for them. Hammertron still up by 4, but Flood using that energy. A great score for them. Just great work through that Hammertron zone. You mentioned again, they've maintained that zone all the way up the field, but it does require that huge focus. A lot of teams, they'll use a zone typically shifting to one side or the other, rather than the sort of the hexagonal structure, the 2-3-2 that we've talked about a little bit during the tournament, they'll switch back to man defense to really be able to isolate players out to exploit mismatches and hopefully convert those turns. Flood very patiently working through that zone for a great score to bring them within 4. The soft cap, the Hooter has gone, so we'll need to play this point. At the conclusion of this point, we will add 1 to the highest score, and it will be a race to that number.
And the rain is letting up here slightly. It's a bit more misty, and in its absence, the wind has picked up, making for beautiful conditions. I'm sure the players are loving it.
Nicholas Whitlock with the pull as Flood come out on defense.
And charging down the field there to meet the disc where it is. Looks like setting a zone.
Downey to Whitlock. Looks like they're targeting the high side of the field a little bit.
Denying those first few yards that could have been so beneficial in moving the offense down the field quickly. The zone is set, and they're stopping that quick movement that Hammertron loves. Carter with a quick give and go to Downey. Ooh! Threading
Beneath
the
the
needle.
outstretched arms of Whitlock to find Hogan. And the zone forcing backwards. Great pressure that we're seeing now.
And again, Hammertron looking for the swings. I mean, swings are what kind of arrowhead formation. They're stopping the downfield and they're leaving those options. I mean, the swings are those downfield looks, especially handlers do manage to thread the needle. Players in the middle there to find
Some very, very confident throws on their line. Move against the wind, trying to static receiver.
Looks
Enough
like
to stop it.
open and was potentially trying to bait that D. Really aware of that open player there, but with that closing speed, just not quick enough to match the throw that Carter put up. That bomb just finding its mark perfectly in the breadbasket, putting another point on the board for Hammertron.
And now with the soft cap having gone, the conclusion of that point takes the score to 12-7 in favor of Hammertron Prime. There is only 1 point left in it, potentially, as we race now to 13. Prime with a defensive break away from bronze medalware. Flood needing to turn the tide in a big way if they want to walk away with the 3rd place finish.
And again, we have seen them do that in their match against Huripari. They really brought the energy, like a blue tidal wave on the field. We know they're capable of it, and they have been making the connections. They know what they need to do.
A high shot over the side. Finds Campbell Jordan.
And
Through the middle to Rory Moore. We're seeing some great disc movement from Flood now, but the defense are enough to arrest it. Resets to Lee, number 57 on the Flood line.
And Flood really pushing the field deep with their cutters, allowing the handlers to make a lot of really nice movements. There we go, using the middle of the field, looking for a quick connection, can't quite find it.
A scuba over the top, finds Rory Moore near sideline, right in the red zone, hoping to finish off a score, goes back to Ben Chong, back a far sideline now to Lucien Lee. Great disc swinging, hoping to move that zone, creating a lot of space for the handlers to work through before something hopefully opening up downfield.
Especially slicing through this wind that is picked up, slicing through that upwind.
Kieran McDonald on the mark, not enough to stop the disc, keeping moving backwards and forwards. We're seeing Ella Lamb again, one of those great players from the Flood line.
She's found her way back to the downfield. And
miscommunication as Lee overcommits, the throw goes out, Kieran McDonald touches it to grass. A great opportunity now as Matua Ian McLaren picks up the disc.
A great break around throw to ball. Ball seeing that deep look and goes for the swing instead. I think this composure from the Hammertron handlers as well as downfield is really what is doing it for them. It's what's carrying them right now. The composure to not pressure any throws that aren't going to lock it in.
But you can feel the intensity now. Hammertron only 1 point away from scoring. Very, very close to the opportunity. They're going to turn the engines up, find another gear. Flood forced to pressure that defense. A little bit of wobble as he works against the wind, but it's kept up by number 69, Lehigh Kapoor for the Hammertron Prime line. Finds ball. Emma Taylor in the red zone now, marked by Hazel Yu, shifting the mark, goes back to McLaren, marked by Moore. Big wings, hoping to shift something.
The number of throws they're putting in before firing to the end zone. Is this it?
Right.
And Hammertron is calling up. Looks like they're going to have a conversation about when did she have control of the disc? Was she in bounds when the disc stopped rotation in her hands, or had she slid out of bounds on her knees?
See this on the replay now.
So ball again looking downfield.
See that cut develop, the intensity on Emma Taylor, number 23's face.
And Hazel Yu just spinning around, not quite able to follow, hips out of position.
We're in the zone. The disc looks secure
I would say that that's definitely secure.
as she slides across the line.
I mean, arguably, you know, her knees could have been out of bounds, but her feet were making contact, it looked like, the whole time. Great handshake to finish that off, and that is the game.
Emma Taylor with a celebratory chicken wing. Glad to see that the players were able to come to that conclusion, despite our eyes in the sky being able to get a slow motion replay, seeing a great finish to that game by Hammertron Prime. It is up to the players to determine what happens. What a fantastic finish. Congratulations to Hammertron Prime as they take home the bronze medal for the second year in a row. Commiserations to Flood putting up an impressive performance, really displaying the kind of ultimate that we know they're capable of, that we saw them put on display as they won a previous game against Huripari on Universe Point. But for now, that is the end of our match. The clash in Kirikiriroa, the New Zealand Division 1 Mixed Ultimate Championships in Hamilton. My name is Blair Monroe.
And I'm Kelsey Bielik.
And we'll be back with you soon.